Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for the organizers in The Economist for inviting me to participate to this session. It's for me a great privilege and an honor to be with you this afternoon in Thessaloniki. So I will share with you some slides, some illustration to illustrate my purpose that will be quite short, to be sure to be on time and respect the time frame. And I will deliver a speech based on my background, which is civil protection as a senior advisor at the Union for the Mediterranean. So when a territory is affected by a natural disaster, whatever it is, and unfortunately the palette is wide, the resident populations will suffer the induced effects immediately or in the longer term. The probability of being impacted by a natural disaster in the world is increasing, and no one is spared, regardless of the continent, urban or rural. The World Bank groundswell that my previous colleague mentioned report informs us that nearly 200 million people could be affected by 2050, which is tomorrow. Climate change exacerbates the consequences of disaster in frequency, intensity, and magnitude, as it has been previously mentioned in the previous sessions, but in a disordered and sometimes inconsistent manner, making prediction difficult. The UNDRA report, Human Cost in Disaster, shares very detailed statistical data on disasters of the last 20 years. It is storms, extreme temperature, and floods that kill the most after earthquakes. For a disaster to lead to population displacement, it will depend on its typology, intensity, magnitude, affected area, impact, consequences, damage, momentum, and the resilience of the population and authorities at all levels of governance. Veronica Casartelli, a researcher on the Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change, in her thesis describes the case to understand how can lead to conflicts and of any kind related to climate change. The science of attribution is recent. The multifactorial, systemic, and holistic causes are part of established balances and dynamics. I want to draw attention to the black box effect, climate shocks, and threshold effects. The Peace Research Institute in Oslo highlights the causal, cumulative, and vicious links that lead to unbundling of the peace, security, stability, development nexus. We will have the opportunity probably to exchange shortly after, but from my perspective and prism of civil protection, I would like to highlight the following key points: climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction means to develop public policies in this direction with financial planning. Geographical approach, considering the vulnerability of territories and issues with a view to business continuity, considering the neighbors. Anticipation and early warning system, have tools and instruments to detect and monitor weak signals to make predictions, using the best available technologies from satellite to social networks. Risk assessment, to identify, assess, and analyze conventional and emerging risks, such as biotics, invasive species, locust, agricultural, and forestry pests, or oasis fires, for example, that we will find in the Euro-Mediterranean region. Governance, national civil protection systems and frameworks, to be coherent, realistic, and efficient governance at all levels, from local to national, including cross-border and international cooperation, that our friend Kobe Wimisberg highlights so brilliantly during his presentation. And last but not least, platforms of exchange involve all stakeholders in the management and risk reduction phases of disaster, interministerial agencies, institutions, civil society organizations, communities, and citizens. Serides and Professor Boustras from Cyprus is one of the main examples of the main actors and stakeholders in the region. And finally, the Union for the Mediterranean is working in this way and supporting projects related to the above-mentioned items supported by countries like France and Portugal, represented here with Monsieur Royer and State Secretary Mrs. Patricia Gaspar. So thank you so much for your attention, and if disasters are better organized than we have not lost the fight yet. Thank you.